Hello, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the Wisdom Speakers and Seekers podcast. My name is Jennifer Regular. I am a soul-centered empowerment coach at Lighting the Path and also your host here for the show. This is the show where I bring people from around the world globally to share how they connected with their calling, the journey that they walked through, some of the ups and downs, and the message that they now use to inspire the world, sometimes through words, sometimes through music, like my guest today, who is Jim Oliver. I'm so excited to have Jim here from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Welcome, Jim.
Hello, Jennifer. How are you? And hello, everybody. Thank you for sharing this time and space together. I greatly appreciated that you made the time for us today.
Absolutely. And I am so honored to have you here. I'll tell the audience a little bit about you here, Jim. Well, a little bit. This is a lot, but you should see his full biography that is just all the amazing accomplishments Jim has made throughout his lifetime, all the experiences, all the people that he's impacted. He is an Emmy Award winner, a multi-keyboardist musician and composer. Jim Oliver is a highly regarded pioneer and innovator of healing with sound and color, and has created more than 3,500 hours of transformational healing music. He is a popular guest on radio shows, webinars, telesummits, and today we have him here on the Wisdom Speakers and Seekers podcast. Jim's formal music study began 65 years ago at age 5. At 14, he attended the Hartford Conservatory of Music, then Julius Hart School of Music, and ultimately majored in classical organ at Hart College of Music. Jim's lifelong career includes performing with the symphony orchestra, many years performing in Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, and hundreds of venues across the US and Canada, and being a composer in residence at Robert Redford's Sundance Institute. For the past 40 years, he has passionately pursued the understanding of how music, sound, and color most beneficially resonate with the body, mind, spirit, and emotions. Deborah Poneman says, Jim Oliver's music is unlike anything you've ever heard before. You don't listen to his music, you experience it. In fact, every cell of your body experiences it. It creates coherence in your brain and opens you to an influx of light, love, and deep peace. I truly believe this music is a technique for spiritual awakening, she says. And I'm sure that in these last couple of minutes before we actually began the show, that you got to experience that for yourself. Jim Oliver is also a pioneer of live streaming, and he developed Harmonies of Light, a one-of-a-kind music and lighting system that, as Jim plays live music, the mathematically related colors shine like aurora borealis, the northern lights. This offers a refined, expanded, coherent, and resonant field of healing and self-awareness. And today he's here about transforming the world through music. So again, Jim, welcome. So glad to have you here. And wow, wow. Yeah, so how did this even become a passion for you? I mean, age 5 is when this all started. Tell us about that.
Well, people who have children or grandchildren or around children, particularly young children, preschool age, will notice, from the time of birth, babies will be looking around at things and you'll wonder what they're looking at. And they're seeing energy. They're experiencing life on a very different multi-dimensional level. We come in with that multi-dimensional aspect, and sometimes going through the school system and this and that, it gets a bit diminished. When I recall, I was about 3.5 years old at my uncle's house, and he was playing piano and organ. He had it at right angles. He had the organ in front of him and the piano at right angles. And it was just absolutely amazing, playing bass pedals with his feet. And this sparkling gold energy came through the wall, over the instruments, and into me. I was 3.5 years old, and I remember it so clearly. My body and being just shivered and tingled. And I knew that at that point, at 3.5 years old, music was my path in this lifetime. And
it's like you're enchanted by this
it
golden
was,
light.
it was a mystical, what you might call a mystical experience,
Yes.
which again is not uncommon for, for young children, because they're wide open, the
Absolutely.
receptors are there. And I started piano at a little before my 5th birthday. And I was the kind of kid that would rather stay home and practice piano than, even be out riding my bike and playing baseball with the kids and stuff like that. I was just so immersed in the experience of music. And probably, I'd say maybe I was maybe 9 or 10 years old after, learning how to play songs, and I'd play for when relatives would come over for, Christmas and Easter and get-togethers. And I noticed how profoundly, not just a little bit, but absolutely profoundly, people's energy changed when I played music. People who were a little bit kind of, grumpy and compressed would lighten up, and people would, dance, and I went, wow, this is just phenomenal. So I proceeded with that. I, played in bands in junior high school and in high school, pop bands, not the orchestra marching band stuff. Too hard to bring a piano out on a football field. So, and then I would go to New York City. My mom would take me on the train to New York City, and Radio City Music Hall. They had a big, huge pipe organ, and which they played between the stage shows and the Rockettes and the movie and the Magician. Interspersed in there was the organ, and I went, wow, that's just one guy sitting at this massive pipe organ, and the sound was phenomenal. I said, I want to do that. And funny enough, the movie was Barefoot in the Park with Jane Fonda and Robert Redford. And this was, 1965-ish. And 1985, I was at Sundance with Robert Redford for a month.
Wow.
And, probably 10 years after that, I do some audio video work, and I did audio video work at Jane Fonda's ranch. So
Oh my gosh.
it's kind of funny how things, who could have figured that one would unfold that way. So anyhow, I got into classical organ, and here's a very high-tech way of doing it. But this was, I was 19 years old, and that's Riverside Church, a massive pipe organ. And I was a classical organ major in college, and then played, oh gosh, thousands of hours in church. It was a big church. They had 10,000 members in the parish, and the church held 1,200 people. So there was, 2 masses Sunday and all day, or 2 masses Saturday, all day Sunday night. So play. And then all of a sudden things in my life changed, my family, and I went off on the road and played Vegas and Tahoe for most of the 70s. I was on the road 52 weeks a year, 7 days a week, living in hotels. And then 1980-ish, moved home and met my now wife of 40 years, Jan, who was coming to Santa Fe to massage school. And I started doing music for massage classes. One thing led to another, and I started putting cassettes out. Back in those days, cassettes, 90-minute cassettes. Yep, 90-minute cassettes, which massage therapists loved because it was an uninterrupted 45 minutes on each side, so they could do a massage without chopped up music. And early in that time, hooked up with a fellow who was a naturopath and an oriental medical doctor and an acupuncturist. And I developed a process called symphonics, which uses specific frequencies and waveforms to treat specific ailments. So for those of you who have ever had muscle testing, kinesiology, chiropractors do muscle testing, naturopaths do muscle testing to see what the right solution is. What I concepted was that everything is vibration, and distress, distortion, disharmony, dis-ease.
Mm-hmm.
And if something is out of balance, sound is a natural way to bring things back into balance, because sound waves are very balanced. They build and decay equally. And I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the noise reducing headsets.
Mm-hmm.
And the way those work, it's a very simple process. And I was doing that stuff back in the early 80s. If there's a little microphone in there and it listens to the noise, and then it takes those waveforms and inverts them 180 degrees. So if the sound is peaking here, it creates exactly the opposite.
Oh.
So they balance each other out. So if you're in an anechoic chamber, which is where you can't really hear sound almost at all, there's no reflecting surfaces. 90% of the sound you hear is reflected sound. Only 10% of the sound goes from the person's mouth straight to your ear. The other 90% bounces off the walls, floors, whatever. So in an anechoic chamber, if you put two sine waves, and a sine wave looks like an S on its side, if you put two sine waves 180 degrees out of phase, they balance each other out and you actually hear no sound. It's really uncanny. And I thought, why can't we apply that principle to helping people find balance? That's and it's one of those words that's been in my observation and experience, it's been kind of overused. Harmony and balance. It's like harmony and balance, peace and love. And you just like zoom right through. You don't even think about it. But when you really take a moment to experience harmony, as opposed to disharmony,
Right.
distortion, dissonance, chaos, and you bring yourself to a place of harmony, which the most ideal place is nature. It's right there.
Right.
And whether you have a way to walk outside and go to a park or look at the clouds, or put something on your laptop or your phone or your wristwatch or whatever, or energetically connect to nature and breathe. And it's amazing the transformation that happens. So I started experimenting with sounds and frequencies, and what we learned was there's a frequency. That's the pitch of the note. A bass note is a big, long 20 cycle a second is about a 56-foot long sound wave. And high frequency, 20,000 cycles a second, our hearing range is about a third of an inch. So that's what we're receiving, what our ears and brains processing is waveforms, anything from 50 feet long to a third of an inch long. But sound also travels with a shape. So if you play a flute, which has kind of a round sound, that's a sine wave. It looks like a sine wave, big S on its side. And you can see it on an oscilloscope, something that shows you a picture of the sound. Or shows you the sound wave. And then there's a square wave, which looks on a scope actually just like a square form. Woodwinds are that, like clarinet. Those are square waves. And then brass, trumpet, trombone, those instruments are sawtooth. So it's just like a tooth on a saw. And what we learned was that you can find the right frequency, but you also have to have the right waveform, so that you can test, middle C with a sine wave, and it could be solid as a rock. And by solid as a rock is kind of a thing that, in kinesiology, if somebody's got a problem with a heart point or a lung point or a liver point, you can, test a strong muscle and then have them therapy localized, touch the area that's being affected, and the muscle goes weak, and then you play the right sound, and if you have the right frequency and waveform, it's solid as a rock. Literally, the fellow I worked with was over 200 pounds, and we'd do demos with, pull a gal out of the audience that probably weighed 100 pounds, and he could literally have her hold her arm out all the way to the side, and with the sound playing, he could hang off of her arm. He could literally pull his feet off the floor and hang on her arm, turn the sound off, it would drop, turn it back on, it would rise back up. So that's showing how profoundly it restores balance to the parasympathetic nervous system and to your energy system. Think of acupuncture, all those acupuncture points. Back when I was a kid, there was a thing called string art, and you'd put nails in a board and then you'd run string between it, and you would end up with a picture of an owl or this or that. Well, we're not much different than that, really. We are tuned points. So if you take these acupuncture points, the distance between the point is, if you put a string across there and you pluck the string, there you go, you can get a frequency. So if you, instead of putting a needle in the point, you find the frequency of the points, you connect the energy. And we, over a 15-year period, did over 1,000 sessions, everything from brain tumors, MS, cerebral palsy, a variety of cancers, cervical cancer and throat cancer and breast cancer, and restoring balance and harmony to the being of you. And people call it healing music, and I like to paraphrase that or qualify that and offer that. In my dictionary, the word healing means to become whole.
Yes.
And it's not about anything that I or anyone else, what they call healers or whatever. To me, a lot of that's marketing. It's because we're self-healing beings. We're self-healing. So what supports us in that is being in a space that offers the opportunity for balance, harmony, rejuvenation, regeneration. When I was a kid, my neighbor across the street had, his leg was amputated just above the knee. And I would go over and visit with him, and he would tell me how his lower leg that was missing still hurt. Maybe it was an accident. I don't know how it happened. And everybody, I'm sure most people are phantom pain. I've heard that expression. And they use a little device that they put little electrodes on either side of the stump, or in this case, the leg, and you could dial in the frequency, electrical current frequency, and the amplitude, the intensity of it, and it would mask the pain. And one of the studies that I saw was, reading a magazine somewhere, and people would start to grow fingers back out of their stump.
Really?
It's and it just makes sense, in nature, that's, it's rejuvenation. You get a cut or scratch, it heals. And at what point did we, as a population, say, okay, this we can heal, that we can't? And so obviously, if you got something going on, you want to, follow your medical care. But just it's an enhancement. Sound healing, music healing, color, it's an enhancement. How does it work? Well, if again, there's a vibration of or an energy of disharmony, distress, distortion, dis-ease, disconnection, and you restore that, we refer to as creating a vibrational model of you in your optimal state that then you can realign with, reconnect with, resonate with, all those little words. But if you really stop and think about how powerful those words are, how can we offer that restorative place for people to experience wellness rather than unwellness? And body, mind, spirit, and emotion. And emotion is often in the driver's seat. If you're having a good day, you're doing good. And if you're not having such a good day, you got the aches and the pains, and then one thing leads to another. The worst thing that happens, you go to work and someone is, "You okay? You don't look too good today." Next thing you know, you're going home sick. It's it's just
it's all downhill from there.
The way the mind, and it's so all of this is offering an awareness of that divine perfection that you already are, that you came in with. There's all kinds of techniques to clear things that might be impeding. And the value of clearing. Think of a stream, for example, and then a leaf is going down the stream and it gets stuck on a twig, but the water keeps flowing and the leaf starts, this and that. Next thing you know, it goes. So vibration, frequency, sound, music is a natural modality for that vibration. Nikola Tesla worked with, it was called a telegeodynamic machine, that if you have a fault line, so you've got the two plates pushing, and all of a sudden, you get the earthquake. His concept was to put these vibrating, thumpers basically on either side of the fault line, keep it in a state of flexure so that as the pressure builds, it just naturally rises over instead of explosively releases. You can take a pad and put a quarter on it and tilt it, and you tilt. Next thing you know, boom, off goes the quarter. But if you tap that pad, and as you tilt it, that quarter is going to start to move right away, because it has a release of that built up tension. It stays flowing right away. It's like being, getting a constant massage, So all of these things, one thing led to another. It's like, well, gee, how about that? Oh, well, if that works, how about this? Oh, well, let's see if we can prove that wrong. I spent as much time trying to prove things wrong as prove things right, because I only wanted to know the truth. How does sound help people to help themselves? How does that work? And the benefit in my world was because I started piano when I was 5. I went to classical music school, college, and you get a real in-depth indoctrination into theory, harmony, analysis, singing, musical performance, orchestration. I had to learn how to play all the orchestral instruments. One week I'd have a trombone, then I have a clarinet, and then I'd have a flute, and then I'd have a cello, and I learned how to. My dad probably drove my dad nuts. Tuba. I had to learn how to play them all, because if you're gonna write orchestral music, you've got to know how the instrument behaves. Its range, and how a performer, how the musician can express through that instrument. So that was a great benefit to me, having that background. And then the basic theory: major keys are very light and uplifting. Minor key are a little more serious and reverent. Music starts with a sound, and that's your beginning point. Then you have a second note, and that's what you would refer to as an interval. And they can be really close together, or they can be really far apart. And if they're super close together, they can sound a little dissonant. And then as you give them a little bit of space, they're a little less dissonant. Then you add the third note in there. Now you have a chord. And that, the first, the root, the first, the third, and the fifth, that's your major triad. If it's a major third, it's a major chord. If it's a minor third, it's a minor chord. Just, basic music stuff of how you can create a mood, and energy field, and offering for people to align with, to resonate with. Strings have a very majestic feel. We could spend hours going into this, but it was an observation, not from just an intellectual, but an observation of, you play for people and you see. We did music meditations at our little apartment when we moved here, 2 nights a week, and we get in this small teeny apartment, we'd get 20-25 people in there, and I would just play for 45-50 minutes. And I learned how playing, and you look at people, and you can see their energy field, you can see the expression on their face. I would go to the massage school where Jan was, and I would play music live and just watch. I'd watch the massage therapist's hands. Were they doing effleurage? Are they doing chopping? Are they doing points, or connective tissue, or deep tissue, and creating music that supports and engages with the technique that the massage therapist is offering their client. And after you do that lots and lots and lots and lots for years and years and years, I roughly estimate that I've played somewhere in the 70,000 hours of music in my life,
Yeah, wow.
which maybe sounds like a lot, but I started when I was 5. I'm
Yeah.
almost 70. So I've been doing it 65 years, and the
Yeah.
last 45 has been doing transformational music. So, I've got 3,500 hours of original music for groups, for concerts, for one-on-ones. But again, you take 3,500 hours and you divide it by 45 years, and then now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's just I've been doing a really long time. So then early in this, color. Jan got me a book called Let There Be Light, and I read that book and I saw how this man Dinshaw was treating people with color. Put lime green on the chest and red on the solar plexus and yellow on the knees or whatever. There's a whole table in there. And it's like, well, of course, it's vibration, it's frequency. We hear 20 to 20,000 cycles a second. Below that is ultrasound, 0 to 20, and that's where brain waves are, alpha, beta, theta. It's in the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 20 to 20,000 is what we hear, audible sound. Above that is ultrasound, and they use ultrasound in medicine for breaking up kidney stones. Then above that's radio waves, AM, FM, maritime, and also working at the same time approximately that Dinshaw was doing color therapy was probably a familiar name for a lot of people, Rife, Royal Raymond Rife, the Rife machine. And there are different modalities of that. There's the contact type, and then there's the radio frequency type, but he was working in the radio frequency wave range to break up cancer cells. There's videos online, you can go see it, he called it the MOR, mortality oscillatory rate, where you'd have a cancer cell, he'd find the right frequency, the cancer cell would break up.
Amazing.
It was amazing. And it's amazing, but at the same time, it's like, well, of course. You find is it live, is it Memorex? They take the glass, go ding, and you hear the frequency. Well, you play that frequency into the glass, and the molecules get so excited, the glass breaks. That's exactly how it works.
Well, that's the transformation too, isn't it, Jim? Is a transcending form. And you're showing how it actually transcends form. Like we create that transformation where it breaks up what took form as cancer or this amputated leg or finger and regenerates and disintegrates, or does what it needs to do to restore that wholeness. And then
exactly
with the balance coming back to center, right? And as a way of balancing and moving from dissonance to what feels resonant, back in harmony, back into your natural rhythms. And you talk too about we're talking about color now as well, but also about emotions and how this affects not just physically, of course, but emotionally as well. And there's a lot of music that evokes emotions or soul, and you see people crying, right? Because it touches them so deeply. How does it transform emotions?
Sure. Yeah. Emotions, it's an energy form. It's a collection of life experiences. It's things that begin, through early childhood on through our lives, and some of that gets resolved and some of that doesn't get resolved. Life gets busy and you move on and you never really have resolved that issue. Some of it is ancestral, that carries over from previous generations of your family lineage. Rebirthing, that was a very popular thing back in the 70s and 80s, and that really is just an opportunity to emerge without the baggage. Music engages emotions. In a movie, just imagine it would be like to go see any movie, whether it's Star Wars or Raiders of the Lost Ark or a rom-com or whatever. imagine what it would be like just to have the picture and the people talking with
Mhm.
no music. The music is what supports the direction of the emotion.
Right.
So it gives you a, like in Jaws, dun, dun, two notes. You know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about like, oh, let's see, what do you think that, there was a study done about, music and emotion and, joy, fear, guilt, anger, those things. There's musical styles that evoke that.
Mm.
So the music that I do is all done, really, it's all done spontaneously, because I played for 65 years and tens of thousands of hours. I sit down at the keyboards and I close my eyes. I ask what's going to support people, this person, whatever the focus, the intention is, for the highest purpose,
Mm.
now and in the future.
Mhm.
Um, and just get out of the way. There is no Jim sitting there. Yes, I'm there moving my fingers, but it's such an almost automatic process because I've done it so much that I hear music, I hear the music come through, and then it's just a matter of playing what I hear. Um, I often joke that I go to the movies and I have to watch it 2 or 3 times because the first couple of times all I hear is the music. It's like, and it's over and James says, how do you like the movie? And I go, I don't know, what do they say? It's like, I see the visuals, I hear the music. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
So, and we just started to talk about color. We got into the
Mhm.
electromagnetic frequency spectrum, and at the higher end of this spectrum, you get the radio waves, and then you get ultrasound radio waves, and then above that is visible light. And visible light, well, you remember on the radio waves, the megahertz and kilohertz and megahertz on your radio dial. And then above that is visible light, 400 to 800 trillion cycles a second.
Oh, wow.
Then above that's X-rays, gamma rays, cosmic rays. So that's the
Mhm.
electromagnetic frequency spectrum.
Mm.
So we're talking about color and audible sound. So for those of you that are musicians or have heard the term octave, if you play a note that's 200 cycles per second, the octave above is 400, octave above 800, 1600, 3200. So you go up an octave, the frequency doubles. You go down an octave, the frequency is cut in half. Well, if you take the center frequency for the color red, which is around 436 trillion cycles a second, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. You do that 35 times, you lower it 35 octaves, and you're right in the audible range.
Wow.
And curiously enough, on our keyboards, you see the notes there. There's 12 notes in our equal tempered scale. That means each one is a perfect 1/12 of that octave. You do the math, and guess what? The colors and the musical notes are mathematically, harmonically, because of the octaves, related. So you play the note on the keyboard, you get, there is a corresponding color. So I did the math, and I did this back in the early 80s, and the system wasn't available until a few years ago. And now I can play a note on the keyboard, and there we go. There's the color
And
blue,
there's the blue. Wow. Oh
and
my
there's
gosh.
purple, and there's red, and lemon, and green. So there you go. So I invented this
Incredible.
system, which we call Harmonies of Light, and I play on the keyboards, and the mathematically related colors shine. So you can couple them. And what you're experiencing are the mathematically harmonically related colors. It's not a random light show like at a music concert where stuff's just all flying around.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the frequencies of the colors of the musical notes you're hearing.
Wow.
So that just offers an even wider opportunity. And I love on your it says Jennifer Regular lighting the path. And that's really what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're illuminating the path. We're lighting the
Exactly.
path
Mm-hmm.
that you have the choice to walk down that path, receive what's being offered, release, transform, transmute with the power of truth and love. And that's really it. That's it in its simplest form and its most complex form, because it's really a simple concept of restoring balance, harmony, vitality, frequency, waveform, major key, minor key, suspension, problem, resolution, solution. The elements that music are ideally suited to mirror metaphorically. Everything in life is a metaphor.
Mhm.
Everything is a metaphor. And music is a perfect way to put form to that metaphor that's repeatable and accessible. You have your gizmo that you can have your music on with earbuds, or I far prefer real speakers with a subwoofer. And here's why. If
Mhm.
music is 20 to 20,000 cycles a second, waveforms 50 feet long to a third of an inch, you're not going to get it from these speakers, not even the little earbuds. Invest. If you're truly serious about the whole concept of sound, healing, wellness, invest in a good pair of headphones. And by that, I mean, at least $100, $200 or $300 will serve you well. If you listen on a laptop, you can buy computer speaker systems, little standalone speaker systems, $150. You can find them online. Just search for computer speaker systems. You get a little pair of speakers with a subwoofer. The subwoofer is the bass. That's what physically resonates most solidly with our physical body. And here's a really important thing to remember. Here's why bass is absolutely important. And because I played organ, and organ bass pedals, they were super low, big pipe organs, 64-foot tall pipes. That is a low sound. I have an oscilloscope, and again, we could take hours and days and weeks going through this. But you take a bass wave on an oscilloscope, you've got this big long S on its side. Play a high frequency sound, you got this. Play the two simultaneously, and the high frequency sound actually piggybacks, it tracks along the bass wave. So the bass is a carrier wave for high frequency sound. It's how they communicate with submarines under the polar ice cap. They set up a ELF frequency, simultaneously broadcast. The high frequency tracks along the bass, and that's how they, and you think about it, it just makes sense. And there's all kinds of, it'll go, oh, I remember they were doing this and that, and all kinds of applications for that. So, conductive resonance. So that's the whole idea. How can we offer the most cohesive, refined, engaging place for people, body, mind, spirit, emotion, for it to all be okay? There's nothing to change. There's nothing to fix. There's no judgment. My favorite saying is, thou shalt not should on thyself.
Right.
It's all, our lives are unfolding. And you hear this, your life's unfolding in perfection. That kind of makes you go, But, there's, everything is, you read these wonderful sayings that, it's not what happens when you fall down, it's how you get up and move forward. Everybody's life, nobody rides for free. Everybody has challenges, and some are much more challenging than others. We're all in this together. And my hope is that we all find that way, that as a global community, we can support each other.
Global harmony and global coherence.
And my contribution to that is Harmonies of Light, and we do live streams. And the beauty of live streaming is that I can play, I speak for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I play for about 45 minutes on the energy of the group, those that will join in the future and those in the world. And the beauty of it is those frequencies, those waveforms, because of the internet, you're live streaming on the internet, it goes over the World Wide Web. So the entire world, all those carriers, whether someone is receiving it in foreign countries, and we get people from all over the world, dozens of countries, but live in the moment, you get hundreds of people, thousands of people. My vision is, can you imagine what it would be like a Harmonies of Light live stream? And you can go to my website and there's some little clips and you can write to me and we'll talk about it. But if you can imagine having tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, spontaneous, live, synchronistically in the moment as I'm playing here with the colors and the music that's offered to empower people to self-empower, self-aware, self-heal. It's all self, self, self. Your true self, your true nature. To me, that's the bottom line. That's the only thing that really matters, is that we all discover, rediscover our soul essence, our soul path, our soul purpose, and everything else falls into place. I did sweat lodges in the early days, and the Native American man that hosted those, he said that nothing more powerful in life than a man, or there's nothing more powerful than a man or woman who has found their place in life. And those words have stuck with me, for 40 years. Just being yourself, and other people observe that, just like me going to Radio City and watching this guy play the pipe organ. Who would have thought how profoundly that would affect my life? And then here it is. I mean, here's the keyboards, mass quantities of keyboards all over the place.
You're surrounded.
And they all have their personality. You have the strings, the choirs, cellos, flutes, piano, grand piano, bass. It's all there right at my fingertips. So I can play, I can go over here, I can go over there, I can get just the sound that I want, or just the sound that's asking to be expressed.
Yes.
And then I have to interpret that as, okay, this is what I'm hearing. How do I get it? And I know where to go. It's do I do up here with the strings and the choirs, or here's the cello and the flute and the ephemeral sweeps, and it's all right there at your fingertips live. So just imagine how profound that would be, and the momentum that creates. Think of race cars that, you get one can do 150 miles an hour, then you get another one right on its bumper, and they break the wind resistance for each other. Now you can do 160. Then you get the third one in there, you can do 170. This works the exact same way. That mutual resonant support from getting hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people live in the moment with that common openness, open mind, open heart for world peace, for self-knowing, self-understanding, compassion, self-compassion. Just imagine how profound that can be for the world and ourselves, personally, locally, and globally, because then you take on that vibration and you radiate that to other people who receive it. They see it, they see you beaming, and they go, I want some of that. Because it's in our nature to be in harmony with our environment. If you get two people and you ask one to sing la, and then the next one to sing la, two dissonant notes, I can't sing two at a time, but la la, there's like la, and then within seconds they both, yeah, they go right to, you go in a group where there's toning. Within seconds, everybody is right on the same pitch. Then somebody will sing a harmony. It's in our nature to be in harmony with our environment.
Right.
So let's allow ourselves that. Let's welcome that and say, okay, let's bring that vibration
Yes
to
to
ourselves
that.
and to the world.
Yeah, and truly imagine that. Imagine what that would be like. Right, thousands of
Absolutely.
people around the world, and the color and the sound, and just everyone together in the same intention and the
Yes.
openness, coming together in harmony, right?
Exactly.
Community coming together
Exactly.
in unity as well.
Right.
Wow, Jim, and you're doing this live stream. So
Yes.
how can people find out about when they are and how they
Sure.
get involved?
It's very easy. You can go to my website, jimolivermusic.com. And on the homepage, you'll see a little thing about Harmonies of Light and a wonderful video project I just did with Bruce Lipton called The Science of Healing Through Sound and Color.
Awesome.
Wonderful, wonderful project. I've known Bruce for, oh gosh, over 20 years.
Huh.
And we've been friends for a long time. I've always wanted to do a project with him. It finally came together. Talk,
Yay.
talk about a guy all over the world, man. He is all over the world. So,
Wow. Wow.
and it finally happened. So he was in the studio a couple of times and we did this
Mm.
project. It's fabulous.
So
It
that's on
gets
there
in-
too.
yes, it gets into science of sound as well as then a 45-minute long Harmonies of Light.
Oh,
But on
wow.
the bottom of the home page is a little thing where it says, receive a free piece of music from Jim Oliver. And it's a beautiful piece called Deep Calm. So
Oh,
all you
wow.
have to do is just sign up for that and it'll put you on the mailing list and we will let you know when we do events. I probably have about 40 or 50 pieces of music also on the website available, and a link to Vimeo on demand for some of the earlier Harmonies of Lights. And you can explore as you are guided, but it's all you do, jimolivermusic.com. And there also has a link to connect with me if you'd like to drop me a line, email, and sign up for the piece of music that puts you on the mailing list, and we'll let you know. What's on the Harmonies of Light pages is an old event. We're building a new website. It seems I'm always building a new website, which will launch pretty soon. But that page will then become, the page for to participate in the next Harmonies of Light.
That's correct.
We
Okay.
usually do all the solstice and equinoxes, and then we're going to probably do one Lionsgate over the summer.
Oh, wow.
And, then we do them on eclipses and where there's energetic openings.
Well, we're headed to an eclipse season.
It's
The
coming up.
pre-eclipse
So
time. Yeah, we're in preparation of that. Yeah.
I'd like to do it in May, but if not, for sure, June, June 2021, whenever the summer solstice is, we'll have that. And autumn equinox and winter. I kind of like to have some sort of an alignment somehow or other. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. And that's where we get in harmony with nature again, too.
well, we feel
Yeah.
the connection of something much further than what we can see with our eyes. This connects, and people talk about the music of the spheres. Well, that's a very real thing. Planets are moving, and you all know the Doppler effect. The greatest demonstration of that is the train horn. And it's simple. The horn is emitting the exact same frequency, but as it comes towards you, those sound waves are compressed, so the waveforms are closer together just because of the density of the atmosphere. And so they are actually a higher pitch because they're compressed. Then as the train horn goes away, the waves forms stretch out. So they're further apart, the peaks are further apart, so it's a lower pitch. So that's why it goes like that. Well, even though it's super slow movement with the planets, it still is a frequency. And it's perceptible and metaphorically relatable. So
Yes.
it's
Wow.
all
I
it's
know. It's
all
also amazing. And to hear about this transformation that happens with music and
sure.
sound and color and the shapes and symphonics and all of the things. Thank you so much for all of it. And I know this was just kind of an overview. As you say, we there's just so much to talk about. So if you want to explore
Yeah,
more, get in touch with Jim. We'll have all the links in the show
sure.
notes here. It's been such an honor and a pleasure. I really enjoyed this, Jim. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Jennifer. And thank you, everybody, again, for taking the time out of your day or evening, whatever it is, to experience this and to receive it with an open mind and an open heart, and see how that all resonates with you, with your personal truth, and then carry on. Just we all keep moving forward. Doing the best we can, and share and care about each other.
Share and care about each other. Yes, thank you all so much for listening, for watching, for joining us here on the Wisdom Speakers and Seekers podcast. Until next time,
Yes.
be peace.